Hey guys, Jake here, and today, for a while now, I wanted to do a video on the Ford Racing series. Back in 2020, I made a video to see how far I could go on the Nürburgring in Project Cars 2 without crashing, and if I crashed, then the video would end. You see, I thought there were so many games in this franchise that it was a little ridiculous for, a budget one-make series. So much so that I'm sure I could crash in a Ford Racing game, make it go to the next game, and be able to do that a few times without the video ending. So that's what I'm doing. Playing Ford Racing, but if I crash, I have to go to the next game in the series. And according to Wikipedia, there are 6 games in the franchise, so of course I'm going to start with the first one. And the rule that I want to set with this video for most of the games is that if I hit a barrier, then I will go to the next game. If I hit a car, it's fine. However, I do want to make 2 exceptions. For this game, if I hit a car, I will go to the next game, because the tracks are a little bit wide and the handling in here is very tight, making it, in my opinion, pretty hard to actually hit the barrier. So if I hit another car, I'll go right to the next game. And the last game in the series, Ford Racing Off-Road, since it's very hard to hit the barriers, if I just end up hitting a rock, then the video will end. So, enough Ford talking, and how about some more Ford Racing instead? That was terrible. And here it is, Ford Racing 1, very first game in the series on the PS1. Now, PS1 games, as someone who grew up in the 6th generation of consoles, mainly my first console was a GameCube, I find it hard for a lot of games, for me personally, to get into the N64 and PS1 style visuals. Even in games like Super Mario 64, I find that like big textures and stuff just look kind of the same, and it like just makes everything in the walls look really strange to me. It's also why I haven't really been able to get into the first 2 Gran Turismo games. I sometimes want to rank the Gran Turismo games and sometimes put them on a tier list or whatever, put them against each other, but I can't really do that because I just don't find myself getting into them as much as Gran Turismo 3 and 4. I know Gran Turismo 2 has a ton of content and cars, but I feel like I don't get the point of playing Gran Turismo 2 compared to Gran Turismo 4, as it really just seems to be a better version of it, at least to me. And now, I think this is where things get pretty interesting, is Ford Racing 2. Ford Racing 2 is in this era of games where there was just so many one-make games, so many budget racing games around this time, that were trying to kind of compete with each other that ended up kind of overflowing the market. If you look at, say, the seemingly endless amount of things like Battle Royale games or shooters that flood the market, it was games like this that were flooding the racing game market. It was the one-make games, budget racers, street racing games. There were so many racing games in that era. I think a lot of people forget how many there were competing with each other, and I think that is part of what leads to there being less in the 7th generation and 8th generation of consoles. There weren't many games like this on 7th generation, and some would say that's due to them being low quality, but I don't really think this game is that bad. I think it's just average, but it's enjoyable. And for, the game's physics and handling, the graphics in general, etc., all areas of the game not being as good as a game like Gran Turismo, Burnout, Need for Speed, etc., it has some interesting things to offer on its own. Just, all the interesting selection of vehicles. There's some cars in here that you don't really see in other games, such as the GT90, the Mustang concept from 05. You're not going to get older concept cars in newer games anymore. So I haven't really seen any other games that really have this Mustang concept. And the progression system for this mode, for challenge, is actually kind of cool because you unlock these challenges where you drive the car for the first time, and then you can unlock them to use in any mode. I think I'm going to go with off-road first, since I think going with something like stock car, just on a bit more of a tighter track like you're seeing in the background demo video, may result in barrier hitting a little too quickly. And here it is, Ford Racing 2. For some reason I start in neutral. Why do I start in neutral? I don't know. What I do know is that I think this game, personally, I like it more than Ford Racing 3. Even if Ford Racing 3 seems to be more well-known one. I just think this game has some cooler tracks, cooler variety of tracks. I don't know, this game has more variety. You see some more city stuff, you see some more jungle stuff. In Ford Racing 3, I feel like it's a lot more countryside and rural, if that makes sense. And that was a little bit scary. This is a little bit scary right here. Okay, no barrier hit yet. And AI is crapping out. And what is this screen shake going on? Okay, now it's over. I wouldn't be surprised to see graphical glitches on games like this. Trust me, the PC ports in this video were not easy to set up. I'm actually doing fairly well. Haven't slowed down too much, but haven't been able to really gain anything. You know what? For how average these games seemingly are, the handling and physics are still way better than any Need for Speed Ghost made. And that's lap 1. Now I'm second. I've done a couple minor hits with another car, but I haven't hit a barrier just yet. This track is a little bit wider, so it's not like that's super difficult to do. This game is probably the one I would prefer to keep playing the longest, as Ford Racing 3 is fine too, but the other ones... I think I ended up cursing myself by saying that because I ended up hitting a barrier, and now we're on Ford Racing 3. And immediately I started in neutral again. I don't know why. Like I said, to do with one-make games. There are some interesting things that the Ford Racing games did. This mode is a very interesting one. This is just like a passing challenge. But there was one specific mode I remember in this game where you actually swapped to like another car. I don't exactly remember which mode that was, but I do remember that being a thing. Oh, I forgot this was a drafting challenge. I always accidentally did that on this mode because it wasn't horribly obvious what I was supposed to do, at least to me. Even if I have to slow down, I just gotta draft this. Alright, there we go, and then the car just disappears into thin air. Nice. And maybe you can see what I mean by this game being a lot more rural. A lot of these tracks were more so on countryside than more so feeling like actual racetracks or in more urban places. The tracks just had a very different focus. In 2 versus 3, and I just think 2's environments are just more interesting to me, I guess. I think they also had some better layouts. A lot of the layouts in this game can feel very samey. This is a Ford. I thought it was a Volvo from the back. I apparently didn't have control of that Thunderbird, and I just ended up sliding into a bush, and now we're on Ford Mustang The Legend Lives. I was surprised that this was listed as a Ford Racing Series game in the first place. There's actually quite a bit of cars, well, Mustangs, to choose from at first. Surprisingly a lot. I don't know why we have this much unlocked at the start, but one of the cool ones is actually the Mustang GT concept, which is what I'm going to go for, since I actually quite like this concept. And if you have a keen eye for games like Street Racing Syndicate, you will have noticed that this game is made by the same developers. I could tell this game was just made by E-Technics before I even went to a race. And driving this concept car, this concept Mustang, makes me think about something. Concept cars are obviously to, you know, showcase the newest in car technology and have crazy concepts for the future, right? So really, concept cars are a thing of their time, because if you want to drive old concept cars in racing games, you have to go to games like this. They're not going to get put back into newer games unless they're incredibly iconic for some specific reason. Or at least that's what I would imagine. I don't know if any older concept cars have actually made it into newer games. Handling in this game isn't too bad, but it's just very average, is kind of how I put it, which is the same for Street Racing Syndicate. E-Technics also made the Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift game, which I know people say is the best Fast and Furious game, but it's not very good on its own either, in my opinion. That was also a little bit... And now it's time for arguably, might be my least favorite game on this list, being Ford Street Racing. Or Bold Move Street Racing if you live in the US, with the accompanying worst cover art I have ever seen for any racing game. This game is not my least favorite for, you know, the actual game itself, but it's actually my least favorite for just how difficult it was to set up and fix for this video.
Right now, just turn on the water right now. Come on.
I think this should actually be a live stream to.
Yes! Yes!
Do the menus and sound effects of this game give anyone else a TDU1 kind of vibe to it? That's exactly it. You have to pick the cars in your team, meaning if you're doing a career race, you need to own the cars. But if the main point of the game is the whole new team mechanic, then you can't just start off right away playing racing in teams to get the game unless you do single race, which therefore you're not progressing, and I am confused. I am second place in this race, and yet I feel little intensity. What is up with this environment? It looks so dull. Oh boy. Oh, okay. I thought he was actually going to lead me into the barrier. I thought I was going to hit the barrier from that. This game, I actually, you know, from my first impression of playing, I think I tried it on PS2 first a while back. I think it was like a year ago I tried it. And I thought it was pretty good just because I liked the handling at first. And handling isn't too bad, but this game I think is more painfully average than some of the others. I mean, I get that they're trying to do like a whole city environment, like they try to do it all city based, but it just doesn't look that great. Something about the city looks so dull, and part of my mind wants to say, oh, it's the lack of pedestrians, but a lot of racing games don't have pedestrians, and they just don't. And now it's time for the last game on this list, which ironically you're not seeing a Ford, but is Ford Racing Off-Road, or as it was called in Europe, simply Off-Road, which is one of the most hilarious generic racing game names I've ever seen. So I have the choice of a Ranger and a Defender. So is this really a Ford Racing video if I ended off with a Land Rover Defender? You know what? Ford Racing has always not been the kindest franchise to me, so I'm becoming a trader and I'm buying a Land Rover Defender. And now that I'm finally on the career map, you can see that there's a specific issue with this game and its UI, being the text. There's no spaces anywhere. A two-stage race. Are you sure you want to go to the game? It also extends to the descriptions, like a two-stage race across the flatlands and desert dunes. Look out for repair pods fixing damage. They surely got some interesting words to add to the dictionary. And now we're actually loading in, and you can see one of the weirdest sort of bloom lighting effects I think I've seen in a long time. Of course, it doesn't beat out Burnout Revenge on the Xbox 360, but it's certainly very strange. So, the rule here is different. I can hit other cars, but if I hit a rock, then the video is over. Currently, this is like stupidly easy. It's quite a wide track. There's another track I played that seems a bit harder to dodge, but this is actually quite wide. And this car is actually pretty good to handle. Okay, that was really close. I thought I was going to hit a rock right there. I thought the video was over. This game, honestly, though, this is still more fun than Ford Street Racing. Oh, God. Okay, same turn. Okay, same jump. Got through it. And even though I am very easily staying in first, still more fun than Ford Street Racing at first. Oh, God.